This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, The War Room, Part 7. When we left off, Angela had told her psychiatrist, Dr. Lopez, all about her wedding with Q 2 years and 3 or 4 months ago. On the ride home, she reminisced about all of the details. It was like a movie playing in her mind. She sat in the driveway and remembered all the way up to the reception. Now, if you watched the bonus episode, you know that things got a little spicy. Hopefully, it wasn't too much for your sensibilities. And if you wanted more, you're going to have to buy the book, baby, because this is TikTok. Now, with that said, Angela parked her car and greeted her security. She had the whole estate in Puerto Rico covered. And then she headed into the house to see how her children's school day went. They're being homeschooled under aliases, and the entire family is in Puerto Rico under assumed names. The only person who knows their real identity is Dr. Lopez, and the only person on the mainland who knows where they are is Angela's family attorney, Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a 60-something-year-old white attorney who's been representing the Spencer family for almost 40 years. He handled Angela and Stephanie's grandparents' estate, set up their whole heir inheritance situation, assisted their mother, Miss Cheryl, with leaving their father and leaving Georgia and moving to North Carolina. He's just as good as Q and LJ are at helping people get missing. Now, if you watched the previous series, then you know that Angela's family owns estates all over the United States. And because of the way that their assets are set up, they're not easily traceable. The average person wouldn't be able to do a public record search and find out all that Angela and Stephanie and their children now own. So no one back on the mainland has any idea where Angela and the children are, and they wouldn't even know to ask Jeffrey. Even if someone did get into his records, they wouldn't be able to find a trace or trail of Angela and the children. Angela is praying that between Q, Stephanie, and Mom Brenda, they'll be able to put two and two together, figure out where her and the children are, and then find them when the coast is clear. Until then, they just have to stay put. So when Angela makes it in the house, the first of her children that she encounters is Melissa. Melissa says, "What's got you smiling, Mommy?" Angela says, "Oh, I was just reminiscing about the day I married your daddy." Melissa said, "Oh, okay. You still haven't told me why you and Daddy's wedding was so weird." Angela said, "What do you mean weird, baby?" Melissa said, "Well, it wasn't like Aunt Steph and Uncle Corcor's wedding." Angela said, "Well, no, we wanted something small and intimate, remember?" Melissa said, "No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the reception when everybody was supposed to walk in together and people were supposed to clap and the music was supposed to play. We didn't do that part. Y'all were gone forever. What were y'all doing?" Angela said, we had some stuff we needed to discuss. Then, like any other child who knows full well when an adult is hiding something from them, Melissa didn't let up. She said, "Well, what did y'all have to discuss that required y'all to take a shower?" Angela said, what? Melissa said, "When y'all came back, Aunt Stephanie said, I hope y'all took a shower before y'all came in here." Angela burst out laughing. She said, "How do you even remember that?" Melissa said, "I remember asking everybody what it meant, and when I asked you, you told me you would tell me later. Is it later yet?" Angela said, "No, baby, you got about a good 10, 15 years before I can explain what that all was about." Melissa said, "Was y'all doing that grown stuff y'all be doing when y'all lock the bedroom door and we can't?" Angela said, "Okay, Melissa, that's enough. Where's your brother?" Melissa said, "He's in the dining room." Angela went in the dining room, and Michael was sitting at the table with his computer, and he was crying. She looked at him and said, "Michael, I asked you to hold off on doing any more research. And this is why, baby. We need to do this together from now on. Show me, what did you see?" At that exact moment, back in Dallas, the district attorney said, "Listen, I understand that Mr. Johnson's wife, Regina, was just found, and she has a long way to recovery. But Mr. Johnson and St. James would not be here right now if they hadn't taken matters into their own hands. They should have allowed the feds and DPD to handle the case. Q's primary attorney said, my client's been in jail for 9 days on some trumped up, absurd charges. And you have the audacity to say that they should have allowed these clowns to handle it? When the DA attempted to interrupt because he wasn't happy with the insults, Q's attorney said, no, none of us would be here if the feds, and then he pointed to the lead federal investigator, and DPD, and then he pointed to the deputy chief of the administrative division of the Dallas Police Department, had done their damn jobs. Instead, they risked the safety of an entire family, the community, and the public at large. And LJ's main attorney said, I concur. In addition, based on my client's medical condition, he has no business even being here. Y'all don't even have the ability to provide him with the treatment that he needs. He should be at home taking care of himself and his wife, who, I might add, was missing for months on your watch. Then he pointed at all of the law enforcement agents, the DA, and the 2 ADAs assigned to Q and LJ's case. She was only found alive because of the heroism of these 2 men. The DA, kind of losing steam, said, what you call heroism, we call vigilantism. And crimes committed by vigilantes are prosecuted just like all others. Your clients both have histories in law enforcement. They should have known better than to run around the community acting like Batman and Robin. Then Jeffrey Weinstein, Angela's family attorney, looked at the DA and said, for more than 30 years, the Newport family has run a successful, illegal criminal enterprise on your watch. Both the feds and DPD failed these men and their families. They were alerted to the threat long before it became a reality, and they chose to ignore it. All they did was what you all should have done. They wrapped this case up and handed it to you with a bow on it, and you arrested them. They handed you 16 known criminals in an airtight case for crimes that include arson, assault, attempted murder, money laundering, fraud, and federal RICO. The DA, unable to respond to Jeffrey, looked at LJ and Q's attorneys and said, let's get to the bottom of this and save all of the courtroom theatrics for trial. Q's attorney laughed and said, trial? What trial? If you even think about continuing with this sham prosecution, I'll bury you. The DA said, listen, I'm not going to take too many more of your threats. Let's talk about what your clients know. You've got to give me something if you want to talk about bail. Then LJ's attorney said, no, Dan, we don't want bail. When this conversation is over, our clients are going back to their cells, rolling up their mats, turning in their jumpsuits, and going home for good. No jail, no probation. They're even going to have their licenses to practice private investigation back, their gun permits, and their concealed carry permits. And if Mr. St. James wants his job at T-Call back, he'll have that too. The DA laughed and said, now that's a joke. Unless you're handing me the head of the Newport family criminal enterprise, you could never expect any of that. We have a solid case against them. Angela's family attorney Jeffrey said, don't worry about it. We'll let this play out in the court of public opinion. And then we'll see you in November on Election Day. Then Q and LJ's team of attorneys and Q and LJ stood up and headed for the door. The DA, defeated, said, wait a minute, gentlemen. Give us a minute. Then he and the 2 ADAs stepped into the hall. He looked at his employees and said, which one of you want to tell me why they seem to know more about this case than we do? And why is New York City's own Jeffrey Weinstein, the best damn Jew lawyer in the country, and the new age criminal dream team, here representing 2 low-level PIs? The 2 ADAs looked at each other, and after a few moments, the more senior of the 2 said, all we know is that St. James is married to a woman whose family has connections. When their house burned down and the bodies were found inside, it was Weinstein who got the injunction to prevent the public from finding out that they weren't inside. Since they weren't reported missing, he must know where they are, and he's probably the reason why the dream team is here. Then the junior of the 2 said, and if Weinstein is here, things aren't what they seem. Then the DA said, no. If Weinstein is at the table, that means those 2 men in there are going to get whatever they want. The 3 lawyers walked back into the room, and the DA looked at Q and LJ and said, let's play ball. Meanwhile, Back in Puerto Rico, Angela just got the shock of her life. She's staring at Michael's laptop screen, and she just found out that her best friend, who's more like a sister, was found alive almost 2 weeks ago. And before she could even allow herself to get excited, she saw further down in the article that Michael had found that Q and LJ, who's also her best friend and more like a brother, are being held in the Dallas County Detention Center without bail. Both men have been charged with wiretapping, kidnapping, and several counts of attempted murder and murder, all in connection with Regina's rescue. Further down in the article, Angela was shocked to discover that Deacon Davis, the man who was arrested at Stephanie's bachelorette party for attempting to drug and assault Angela, who's been running loose in the community out on bail and delaying his trial, was one of 16 men arrested in the plot against their family. When Angela looked at Michael, he said, "My daddy's not coming, is he?" Angela said, "Oh, baby." Michael said, "We need to go home. We need to go right now. My daddy needs us." Then he jumped up and ran to his room.